Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Hardwood Nation podcast with your boy CL Anthony and my main man Bryce Ward. What's going on, Bryce?
Not much. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Finna throw you a curveball because we couldn't record last week. Congratulations on the first pick in the NBA draft coming up. Just throwing that out to you.
Thank you.
All right, so here we are. The two best words in sports, Game 7 today. Well, tonight. Too late tonight, but tonight.
hmm
The Boston Celtics are traveling to Miami to face off against the Miami Heat. You said before the series that the Heat would win in 7. I thought the Heat would win in 6. I was scared shitless when the Heat lost game 5, having to go up to Boston. I was scared shitless with everything
hmm
that's going on this series, refs, injuries, players in and out every goddamn game. How surprised are you that Miami was able to win game 6? Because I'm telling you, I had absolutely no confidence that they could pull it off.
I thought it was kind of like 50-50. Backs against the wall, you have to win. And there's a lot of the guys on the Heat team that thrive under a type of pressure like that, especially Butler. He almost needs some odds against him more than usual. He's that type of player that thrives off of people undermining him, things like that. So I picked the Heat in 7. I didn't think it would be easy for them at all, obviously, with the pick. Um, I thought it was just straight up trade back and forth. So I was surprised when Boston won their 2 games in a row. And I just thought the chance that Boston would win the series went up considerably. I still thought the Heat would go up and get that game in Boston just out of pure necessity, even though it's harder to win in Boston, of course, than defending your home court. I was surprised Miami lost that game at home. So, but I felt like with backs against the wall that the continued woes they had wouldn't surface through every game. So, like out of just the odds of the way the games had went, I thought Miami would win that game and they'd come back home for 7.
Got
And
it.
I think Miami wins at home today because the Heat team as a whole has kind of underperformed this series to me, except for Jimmy Butler. I know Tyler Hero's been out, but he's been hit or miss in the playoffs anyways. Oladipo, same thing. Kyle Lowry, you don't know what you're getting because he missed more time than the other guys. Oladipo's a late staple. Nice surprise to the lineup when needed, but he didn't play whole season, so it's almost hard to envision what you could average from him in these games. Like Struss had a bad couple games after being hot at the beginning of the playoffs. It just seemed, and Bam's the biggest disappointment. And you can talk about matchup sizes and things all you want, but as your number 2 guy, you have to get. You're not even getting in double digits some games. I mean, I know you're defending, I know you're getting rebounds, but and Jimmy Butler put up one of the greatest performances I've seen for the Heat or in the playoffs in general last game. But like you need some other guy to step up. You need something. Kyle Lowry played a little bit better, of course, the last game. The whole team played a little bit better than the game before, of course, but the game before was abysmal. Without Jimmy Butler right now, you're pretty much dead in the water, and you just need a little bit from someone else. And I'm looking at Bam as the biggest issue there for me. As your number 2 guy, like arguably an all-star or a star at least, by many accounts, by a lot of Heat fans. And if this was anybody else on any other team, we'd be ripping them. So I believe a Heat win. I believe Jimmy Butler has again another big performance. But I'm looking for at least one other guy. Like someone needs to get into like the 20-point range or the high. There needs to be a couple guys in the high double digit. I know Boston has a great defense, but you guys can't have bad shooting nights on top of having people injured. Like, you guys have that Heat culture where next up, that's fine, but then you got to make shots. And if it's only Jimmy Butler making shots, that scares me. I don't care if he drops 50. Like, the rest of the team scares me in this series against Boston. The rest of the playoffs, they've been great. You've had a lot of guys step up, have big games. I know Tyler Hero going down definitely hurt the bench, but he was hit or miss for a couple games too. So I'd like to see more consistency from the rest of the Heat team, which we consider to be a deep team with lots of weapons. I need to see those guys make some shots. For me to be convinced that not only can they go in and win tonight at home, which I do think they do, but for me to believe in them in the finals, which we'll get to later, of course. But I think the Heat win tonight. I think Butler has a big game. I think everybody that should have big games does, and I think it's going to come down to some of the supporting players and how well of a game Bam plays.
Got it. There's a lot to unpack there. It's a lot.
I've been waiting.
Tyler Hero was actually our leading scorer in the regular season coming off the bench. Jimmy was second. Bam was third. Um, I killed Bam last year. All of last year, I killed Bam. This year, I've learned to appreciate the defensive effort. So if he's tired on defense, and if that's contributing to his lack of scoring right now, defend your ass off. That's just what I got to say, because Boston has two great bigs down there. They have two and a half good bigs, Horford, Williams, and then the little fat kid, the other Williams off the bench, the Grant Williams, the little light skinned kid. Um, Bam has his hands full trying to contain those three guys. From a historical standpoint, you have your swing games: game one, game three, game five. When you win game five on the road and you host game six at your house as an elimination game, the high majority of those teams win. They win that game. The odds switch again. If the home team who's up in an elimination game loses game six, in game seven, they're annihilated. The numbers show that 80% of the time they lose. Um, I think Miami's going to beat the brakes off of Boston today because you can't give a wounded animal life. Miami was dead in the water, couldn't make a shot. Boston had all the momentum. Boston had the referees on their side. Boston had the media on their side. There's absolutely, and yes, Jimmy Butler, all-time great game. There's no reason Boston should have lost that game. They should have closed the Heat out. Now, here's something about the Celtics. I just looked this up this morning. They haven't been to the finals since 2010. Since that time, they've been in the conference finals 5 times. Every single time, they've hosted a game 6 with a chance to close out the team. And every single time they failed, and they've lost the series. That's incredible. Looking back at that, that is incredible. That they've had a chance. They've been one game from the finals 5 times and have never been able to close it out. And this current incarnation has been there 3 of those 5 times. So I think they're clearly, even more so than Dallas, even more so than Phoenix, they are clearly next in line. I just don't think it's this year because
we both hope it's not this year.
No, look. I'm gonna take the 80% over the 20%. Right? This is that's just what I'm gonna do. I'm always gonna take the numbers on that. You cannot let what happened in Game 6. You can't let that happen. And see, this is what people who watch the game know. The refs called a better game. They did. It was more even. Was it even? No. Boston still got more calls, but the Boston Celtics players melted down. And what I mean by that is every time they called the foul against Boston, it was, you're talking to the referees. You're not getting back on defense. Miami's taking advantage of it to where your coach again has to tell you, stop fucking worrying about the refs and play. It makes no sense that during a series where you have a huge free throw advantage. You get one call against you and you lose your fucking mind. What that shows me is they're still not tough enough mentally. What that showed Miami is we can get into their fucking heads. And it's baffling to me. And Bill Walton even said something about this recently about players bitching about foul calls and stuff. It's baffling to me that you were up in the series, you were getting all the calls, and you're still bitching at the refs. So what the refs had to tell them, the refs literally had to tell the Celtics during the game, cut out the complaining. Like just cut it out. The announcers heard them say it. They're like, yeah, the refs just told everybody to cut it out because it was so much talk. And I'm just like, what is going on? You still have to put the ball in the hoop. You still have to play defense. You can't rely on the referees all the time. You can't do that. Jimmy Butler's on one good knee out there dropping 47 on y'all. The reason he was able to do that was because the Celtics have been packing the paint. Because Miami was missing so many shots, the Celtics were packing the paint. All Miami has to do is hit a couple of threes, and then guess what? Now you have to pay attention to the perimeter. So even though Tyler Hero hasn't had a great series, that's why he's so valuable because he can knock down an open three. Max Strus had a couple of bad games. Guess what happened last game? He was knocking down threes. Kyle Lowry was knocking down threes. Oladipo was knocking down threes. That gave Jimmy Butler all the space to move. Tonight in Miami, that three ball is going to fall. It is going to fall. And that's going to clear up the routes for Jimmy Butler to slash and do what he does best. Because after game 5, where they shot 7 from 45 from 3-point range, oh, no, that's not happening again. I think Boston made a huge mistake by losing game 6 in their house. They made a huge, huge mistake. And I'm not going to say it's because of youth. They're young, but it's not like this is their first time in the conference finals. Luka has an excuse. He's young. He got blasted out of the conference finals. That's part of his steps. This team has been there before. 3 out of the last 5 years, this team's been in the conference finals. They should know how to close it out. They made a huge mistake. With that said, do you think it's going to be a tight game? Do you think it's going to be a blowout? I think it's going to be a blowout.
I say it's a tight game until maybe the end of the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we'll feel someone's presence, and then I think we'll see an answer back type of run, and whether or not it's effective, enough to get them back in the game or not. But I just a lot of these games have gotten a little out of hand towards the end of the third quarter. Like, we've seen teams come back out hot, and it kind of decide the game. So I want to see how both teams come out to start, and I'm interested to see how teams come out after the half, because that's when you tend to get the tone of how they're going to answer or what they're going to do. So I think it's close until about that time. Then we're going to really see.
This is another thing. I love Boston's coach because he's so honest. I mean, just like Eric Spoelstra, he's just so honest. He said we can't continue to have to come back in these games. Like the games that they've lost, Miami's jumped on them early. So he's like, we can't always play from behind because it does wear you down. The only reason Boston was in that game, the last game, was because their bench player dropped 22 points because we shut down Tatum and Brown in the second half of the game. Bench players play better at home. If Miami jumps on them early tonight, which I'm pretty sure that's the game plan, if Miami can jump on them early, I think Boston's going to win. I just think they're going to be shook. They're going to be like, what the fuck? It's going to be 1-2-3 Cancun at halftime. Like, because I don't see. I can see them being rattled if they're like, oh, here we go again. If they jump on Miami, if they jump on Miami early, Miami's not going to be rattled. But if Miami jumps on Boston early, I think Boston's going to be a little rattled. Because when that's happened, they've lost. So we'll see. But I think the answer is going to come in the second quarter. So I think Miami's going to jump on them early. Boston's going to answer in the second quarter. Miami's going to pull away in the third because Miami's had
Mhm.
throughout the playoffs strong third quarters. So I think
Yeah.
Miami's going to pull away in the third quarter, and then that's going to be a wrap. Now, going into our finals preview, that may be a bad thing, but for this one game, for this one game, I think Miami's going to leave it all out on the court. So
Mhm.
we both have said that we think the Heat are going to move on. So we're going to do our too early NBA Finals preview. We know Golden State is ready. Sorry, Draymond. I know you wanted Boston, but you ain't gonna get them. What are your thoughts on Golden State being back to the finals, considering all the adversity they've had with injuries for the past 2 seasons? Let's give them their flowers.
Um,
And Durant leaving.
they're just I mean, they were a great dynasty before Durant. So, um, based on them just not being healthy, I if you really, I think, don't have too much of a short term memory, it wasn't that long ago when Golden State was dominating. I know the last time they were really tough, they did have Kevin Durant. So you got to go back just a couple more years. But there was a time where this team is very similar to what they are now. No Kevin Durant, but you had your big three there, and Stephen, Clay, and Draymond, of course. And then you had some very good role players. Andre Iguodala, who won a Finals MVP. You know what I mean? What was the big man they had back then? I
They
mean, I know
had
they weren't
Bogut. They had Andrew Bogut.
Bogut, so big. They had a good team, and this team reminds me of that, if not younger and more dangerous. Um, the fact that they're here this year, I said it earlier on in the season. If they're able to win a championship this year, the league is in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's like the the revival of that team, everybody being healthy, interchanging and having that pool step up and play well, having Andrew Wiggins play very well for what they need him to be. You can't ask more from him. Um, the type of offense they run, how well they run it, their coaching, Golden State's kind of undeniable. And it reminds me of a team bringing in a big star player again. So it's like you got your Klay Thompson back. Let's say it like that. Usually, when a team comes together for the first time, you get close, but you fall at the end. Miami Heat and LeBron James. I'm trying to think of another. Well, Brooklyn hasn't even made it that far. So, but lots of times with high potential, it's really hard for a team to put it together the first year
Yeah.
and win a championship. That's hard to do. So in my eyes, that's like Golden State this year. The problem is they have experience as a team. It's not like bringing in a new player, but the feeling to me is the same. So if they're able to win a championship this year, and before Clay came back, no one really knew where they would be and how good they would be. We got a taste of it last year, but still, a lot of questions. So for them to be competitive, even before Clay came back, I think raised a lot of eyebrows. They're like for them to be that competitive because they really hit their stride and they were right there in the middle of the pack and they were beating some good teams too while doing it. So it was a little unexpected, but for them to be here with Clay, completely healthy, and kind of feeling themselves already, like playing with a swagger, fucking doing dosey dos, creating new plays on the fly. I'm like, what's going on here? It's like for to see them this comfortable and playing this well is really is scary for the league this year. So earlier on in the season, I picked Miami to win the championship, and that's still my pick. But More so than any other team that I thought Miami could face, even coming out of the West. This Golden State team, I think, is better than anything I thought could happen out there. And with their playoff experience, I think now they're by far the most dangerous team in the NBA. And if I would have seen this team and known what they could have been, seen them at the beginning of the season, I think it would have been a 50-50 split in what I thought the finals would have been. I don't think, I'm still really convinced Miami comes out the East, but I thought Miami had this thing in the bag this year, and the emergence of this Golden State team and kind of being great at the exact opposite of what, like, you guys thrive on good defense. Boston thrives on good defense. And then, you got to make shots. You got to do the rest of the things. Your stars have to be stars. I get that. But Golden State thrives on their offense.
Right. Right.
And so that aspect just seems crazy interesting to me, no matter who Golden State has to play. So either way, I think we're in for a great finals. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see. But Golden State is incredibly dangerous, and if they win this year, they might go on a 2 to 3, 4 year run where they're at least in the finals every year again. Because LeBron James is getting older. The Lakers look like, they can't really answer back. The real competition out there is a Phoenix Suns team who can't close out a series, and you got an emerging Luka and Ja. Those are the most dangerous, maybe. If Denver can get healthy. There's a lot of teams out there. I get that. But Golden State's got something else working for them. And if they're healthy, they seem like the most dangerous team.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still going with the Heat. But I think there's no way they would have to win in 6 because I don't think it goes back.
Well, Golden State has home court advantage.
Right. So I think the Heat would have to win in 6 because I don't think they could go to Game 7 and win in Golden State. Yeah, I don't think that's too tough. So that's my pick, Heat in 6.
I want to bounce back to one thing that I said earlier as far as home teams in Game 7 winning 80% of the time. We did see that skewed this year when Luka went in there and absolutely shitted on Phoenix in Game 7 in Phoenix. So Miami saw that. You get what I'm saying? So they saw how devastating of a loss that was for Phoenix. So Miami knows, we can't have that happen in our house. And like you said, the Heat would have to probably wrap that up in 6 games. They still would have to win a game in Golden State to win the series. They just have to.
Yeah.
I think Boston and Miami poses a similar problem to Golden State that Memphis did. Now, between Memphis, Boston, and Miami's smaller, but Miami's still slightly bigger than Golden State. Um, they would just have to play big and they have to play strong. And I would love to see Bam and Draymond go at it. I would absolutely love to see those two go at it on a night-to-night basis. But we both said towards mid-season we see Miami coming out of the East and winning this thing. I'm sticking with it as well. I know for a fact we've played Golden State tough and close the last 4 or 5 years. We match up well with Golden State. We've led Golden. They beat us both games this season, but we've led both those games late. And I remember the last game was like Jordan Poole just came out of nowhere and dropped like 30s. I'm like, what the fuck? That's when I started paying attention to Poole. I'm like, who is this kid? We couldn't stop him that night. But there is no team that I'm afraid of. I think Miami can match up with any team. And that's me being a little biased because I'm a Heat fan. I will say I believe this Boston series is going to be a tougher series than the Golden State series, if that makes sense. So,
I do think so. It's a rougher series. Like Boston is you and Boston are very similar.
Yeah.
And so it's tough.
My only concern, and everyone is banged up, so I'm not using this as an excuse. My only concern is I don't know how bad Jimmy's knee is. Apparently, PJ Tucker shouldn't even be playing. I don't know when Hero's coming back, and Kyle's game to game. Some games he got it, some games he
Yeah.
don't with that hamstring. So that's the only thing that bothers me because I think we are a little more injured than maybe Golden State is. That's the only thing that bothers me. Um,
Hmm.
and it sucks. It sucks. But I'm about 60-40 Miami, that 40% being all these goddamn injuries. That's just, I
Hmm.
wish both teams could be healthy, peak condition, all of that. Um, but I'm
Some
60
people are
40.
gonna say we jinxed them just even picking them today, and it's gonna be Boston. That's what people are gonna say.
We love our brothers.
Okay,
we,
so I just wondering if you do.
oh, you do. I've been seeing it all week. He said he ate. Shout out to Kevin Carter and Cortez Paul of the Balls in Our Court podcast. Kevin
That's
say he
funny.
anti jinx me on their last podcast. So did you see my meme I hit him with yesterday? Jimmy Butler talking about some see y'all Sunday.
I wasn't on social media
Okay,
much
yeah,
yesterday, so
yeah. I got, we've been having a playful back and forth because Kevin hates it when I predict the Heat win. He hates it. He's like,
I've never seen a Heat fan seem like he's hoping his team loses, even though he thinks they're good. Or when I don't, Kevin throws me like curveballs sometimes. I'm like, what's going on here?
it's gonna be
I
a
love it. I
fucking
love those
blowout
guys
tonight.
though.
It's gonna be a
I love those
blowout
guys.
tonight. I'm telling you, the Heat's gonna win by like 15. I'm telling you because I believe Boston's gonna tap out. Um, I'm gonna let you have the floor for a second because we've had this conversation offline, but the people need to hear it too. How excited are you for the prospect of Chet maybe coming to Orlando?
I'm trying to not get too excited, but
Mm,
I'm very excited.
okay.
Whether it works or not, because all I want is the opportunity to take a chance on a guy like that. And this is why he's my pick over was it Smith, Jabari Smith?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, and the reason I'm going those guys over the Duke prospect is because I haven't seen too much of these guys, but from what I understand, the Duke prospect is a guard, or right?
I think he's a
Is he a
guard. Yeah, I think
guard?
he's a guard. He's like a combo guard. Yeah.
Okay, I could be wrong. I'm just saying right now I feel like we have a lot of guards who might need the ball in their hand,
Hmm.
or I think we're set on that right now. That's all I'm saying. I want to see what we have with Fultz and those guys before I. But our big Wendell Carter Jr. emerging is nice. Mobamba having a great season is nice, which it seems like the management is back and forth on how they want to handle him. The Jonathan Isaac situation, I think, was a curveball no one was really looking to have, and it even aside from the injuries, because it's not like we're used to having him on the court. It's just we thought we'd get him back eventually. Now all that's gone, so that's fine. So in my eyes, we need a more predominant big man presence. That's just me. That's my opinion. That's all. So I thought with that added with just everybody being healthy, these young guys getting better, that's what I was wanting to see. Like just the natural progression of things. Okay, but getting the number one pick allows you the chance to get this 7 foot or 7'1", whatever his height is. We know we know these things lie sometimes, but either way, he's a big man. He has a defensive presence. He can put the ball on the court. He can handle the ball, basically, like a like with the skills of like a younger Anthony Davis as well. Like the ability for them to take the ball and move it up the court. Giannis is the perfect example of that because of how athletic he is. But I think the there's not a lot of years. There's not a lot of players that come along with this kind of size, with this kind of ability. You the biggest issue is like his how thin he is, his weight, and like how healthy he can be in the NBA. Obviously, that's a question when you come in that thin. We've seen a lot of guys come in extremely thin. Kevin Durant is one of them. Looked like a skeleton at first. Porzingis, I think, is the closest we've seen to like what Chet looks like initially, and we know Porzingis has had trouble staying healthy. But everybody's different. My biggest thing is Chet seems like the outlier, the guy that you don't see in every draft. He has a pedigree for playing tough games in college. Like, we've seen a lot of him. He has the things you want to see in a player. Like, the biggest problems in my eyes are the health. So I know this seems to be a question in a lot of fans' minds, and like where they think the organization's going to go. I think the organization would be crazy not to pick him first, Chet. I mean, I also think based on their history, that's what most people should think they're going to do. They even made a comment I saw yesterday or the day before where they said they value like length and size, and it was like a hint at whether or not he pans out. I feel like I'd rather take a chance with the high end ceiling pick of Chet than, to me, the safer pick of Smith. And I'm not knocking Smith. I just think initially, whatever he brings to our team, Chet could bring, but with a higher ceiling of potential, even in a rookie season. So when the Magic have had the number one pick and they've picked a 7-footer, it has bode well for us eventually. So I would gamble and pick Chet. I wouldn't trade the pick. I wouldn't mess around. I wouldn't whatever it is that people think the Magic could do. I'm pretty sure they're going to keep that pick, and I'm pretty sure they're going to pick Chet with it based on this management, like history. They picked. This is the same guy that picked Giannis, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's like 13th or 14th, something like that. But Chet fits what this team has picked in the past, especially in terms of big men. So we'll see. But I'm like, I would bet money the Magic pick Chet, and I think it's the right pick.
I only have one warning for Magic fans. I'm not, this not necessarily you, but the only warning I have is Alex Martin's, and I told you this the other day when he said that they're going to deliver a championship by 2030. Well, we're about to get into 2023, so if this is going to be the guy. It better get done because after this, I don't know what other direction the team can go in. Does that make sense? I know it's
Mm-hmm.
still years down the road, but I don't know where else they can go. So that's my only warning for Magic fans. Give it time. If this is gonna be the guy, give it time. You still have that window. You have 7 years um, to get it done with this kid. I don't think they're gonna put him in there right away. Um, he could very well ride the bench the first season. Like, let's just be
Mm-hmm.
real. They're not gonna throw him out there. He has to fill out a little bit. Then you guys have to shuffle some pieces to make room for him. So I, I'm okay with them drafting him. I'm okay with them bringing him along slowly, which sounds like that's what they want to do. So we'll see. Let's see. I'm excited to see how it plays out. I'm excited to see how it plays out. I think you guys have a good young team. I'm waiting for you guys to kind of turn that corner a little bit. You know what I always say. If you guys played against the rest of the league like you guys play against the Heat, y'all would be in the playoffs every year. That's just what I say. And there's a lot of truth to that. Um, but yeah, it's interesting to see how you guys can turn it back around. So we'll see. So That's going to be it for this week's episode of the Hardwood Nation podcast. Follow us on Twitter, like, subscribe, and share our content on YouTube. We're on Facebook as well. You can drop comments on all our videos. You can tell us how great we are. You can tell us how ugly we are. We don't care. We're still going to respond to you and tell you thank you for participating. That is going to be it.